The following was taken from my DEF CON 23 talk at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was recorded on August 7th, 2015.
The creative misapplication of technology.
Things that we really have been able to capitalize on is sequential numbers and the privacy leak, the data leaks that happen with sequential numbers. It's really staggering. Sequential numbers are used everywhere. I mean, absolutely everywhere. They're on your vehicle identification number, social security numbers, ticket numbers, order numbers. I mean, they are literally everywhere. And you know, from a data standpoint, you need unique identifiers to represent things like orders, people, all that kind of stuff. But you don't need sequential numbers. And typically, the only reason these numbers become sequential is because it's sloppy programming. You know, somebody programs an online app, and instead of providing a unique order number, they basically reveal the index for that order in some table someplace, right? So they end up being sequential. Well, unless you've got chargebacks and weird things going on, but you can pretty much count on these things being sequential. So I'm going to show you a little story, or I'm going to tell you a little story to show the power of sequential numbers and how the US government almost let an entire generation be susceptible to identity fraud, all right? So here's how it happened. Social security cards, they all have numbers on them. And the first three are an area number. The middle two are a group number. I really don't care too much about those. They basically kind of identify the regions you're from and that kind of thing, and where things were processed. But the last four digits are interesting because those were serial numbers. And from 1935 up until 1972, when they changed the law, they were truly sequential numbers. But it wasn't a big deal because I don't know about you guys, but I grew up like in the 70s, and I was probably 14, 15 years old when I got my Social Security card. And if I had gone with a buddy, or if there had been somebody else applying for the number at the same time, we would have got sequential Social Security numbers. Not a big deal because there wouldn't be a whole lot to connect these two people together. So if you knew one number, you probably couldn't guess the other one because you wouldn't know who the other person was, right? Well, this all changed in 1972. These numbers became no longer sequential. And I don't know why they did that, but I know the way the government works. And I know it wasn't because they had a lot of foresight and were thinking about the Tax Reform Act of 1986. Because in 1986, the IRS said, if you are going to declare a dependent on your taxes, that dependent needs to have a Social Security number. And I think it was probably done more for tax reform to weed out fraudulent activity on taxes, because the year they did this, there were 7 million fewer dependents claimed on tax forms. But again, I believe it was an accident that in 72 they stopped doing the sequential numbers. It wasn't because of this. I can't believe it was. But if they hadn't changed the law in 72, this would have been the scenario. You've got 3 kids back in the late 80s. You need to declare them as dependents on your tax forms. You've got kids that are maybe ages 5, 3, and 1 or something. They don't have Social Security numbers, so what do? You go to the post office, you go to the Social Security Administration, and you file for Social Security cards for all of your children at once. So the bigger the family, the bigger the threat, because each of these siblings will have sequential Social Security numbers. And it's pretty easy to pick up a Social Security number, right? If you work in HR, if you do credit kind of stuff, or if somebody dies. You know, you're all familiar with the Social Security death list, right? As soon as you die, if you're an American citizen, your Social Security number gets published. It becomes public, so nobody uses it. But if you know one of these numbers and you know they have siblings, it would be trivial to guess what their Social Security numbers are. So I'm very thankful that they changed the law, but it would have been catastrophic otherwise if they hadn't. Real quick, I want to tell you what happened right after my talk. A woman came up to me describing herself as a naturalized citizen, and she told me that on her naturalization day, they all received Social Security cards at the same time, and everybody in her family had a sequential Social Security number. So apparently, they're still doing this practice. Okay, so how do we use sequential numbers in our business? And sequential numbers, again, are usually not thought of as being metadata, but they really are. So my girlfriend and I, we started our business, and we had tried other things before and nothing really caught on. But we got excited about this one because our month-to-month sales were pretty good. We were having like 150% increase in sales pretty consistently every month that we were going on this. And I was excited. I mean, this was growing a lot faster than my consulting practice. And I think probably in the next year or two, it's going to surpass my consulting practice, I think. But we were getting very confident at this point, right? Along by August and September, we were plowing money into the business. Everything that we were making, we were putting back in, plus some. So we were investing in an inventory, we were investing in space, shelving, fulfillment equipment like scales and all kinds of stuff. And we were doing it because we had some confidence. We had about 6 months of consecutive growth. We're in this now, okay? And then came October. Sales just went through the floor. So what you need to remember here is that we sell on a number of different channels, and probably 80% of our business comes from this one channel. And our business on that channel was really, really off. And we were getting very concerned because we were still plowing money into this business, right? So we're thinking, we don't know this business. We've only been at this for a few months. Did we enter at a bubble? Did we hit the peak of the bubble? Now it's going to be this from now on? We didn't know. So we were trying to figure out what was going on. We were pulling up spreadsheets. We were looking at old orders. We were trying to get a clue, right? So my girlfriend's reading off order numbers and amounts and stuff, and I'm plugging things into a spreadsheet. And we both noticed at about the same time that the order numbers were getting bigger. And then it was like, okay, we need to find 2 orders that were close together. And we found 2 that were placed almost at the same time. And the order numbers that we were getting from this channel were incremental. Well, they weren't incremental, they were sequential, right? It's like, okay, we got something now. So here's what we did. We took the last order number that we had to fulfill in October, and we subtracted the last order number we had from September. And this gave us an estimate of the number of orders that were fulfilled through the sales channel by all of our competitors for the month of October. Pretty cool, huh? We knew that they fulfilled 6,500 orders, roughly, that month. This was our bad month, mind you. So we're thinking, well, our average order, we figured out to be $12.48. And we had no reason to believe that our orders were any different than anybody else's that was using the sales channel. And we determined this to be pretty typical. It's very competitive. So this was pretty typical. So we took our average sale, and by the way, that should not be July, that should be October. We multiplied it by the number of orders that we estimated for October, and we figured out that the gross sales on this channel in the month of October, our bad month, was just over $81,000. All right, that's pretty cool. So now let's look at the other months. So we took the last order number from the last order that we fulfilled coming from the sales channel from April, May, June, July, all the way through October, and we were able to figure out the number of orders that were placed, right? And from this, we were able to figure out the gross sales for that channel, right? Fun with metadata. Cool stuff, right? We were happy because we looked at our October sales, and it's like, well, it's not consistent with the channel. The market is fine. We screwed up someplace. We did something that caused our sales to be off, or maybe it was just a fluke. but we did not enter the market at the beginning of a bubble. So we were able to sleep much better at night knowing this, okay? So better living through metadata. So this is what the channel sales actually looked like. Even though ours was really down for October, theirs was actually up a little bit. So we're like, well, what else can we figure out? Well, if you want to figure out what you can figure out, write down what you know. Well, we know that the channel that we were selling on, their commission's around 20%. So we were able to figure out how much commission they were making every month. And they were making $15,000, $16,000 a month commission. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Well, we also know that when somebody buys something on this channel, they're charged for postage. And as resellers, we get some of that back, but the channel keeps $1.25 on every sale. So we're able to look at their postage that they get, and we're able to figure out that their average monthly profit for this sales channel, this website, is about $24,000 a month, and that they have annual profits of about $300,000 a year. Well, this really got us thinking. You know, we're thinking this is probably not information they wanted to share, probably not with somebody who's got 20 years of web development experience. And this channel, I mean, honestly, it's probably something, you know, their biggest task every month would be making PayPal payments to their, doing commission checks off to people, basically. I can't imagine that it takes anybody more than a couple hours a month to run this, seriously. They don't advertise, they have no expenses, they carry no inventory. Their business model's clearly better than ours. So, for now.
The creative misapplication of technology.